Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner, and here in Southern California, we have a love-hate relationship with our freeways. They allow us to get where we're going faster than taking surface streets. Well, sometimes. But there are a lot of things about our freeways we may not be aware of. Joining us right now is Paul Haddad. And Paul Haddad is the author of a new book. It's called Freewaytopia, How Freeways Shaped Los Angeles. Welcome, Paul. Good to see you. And that's quite a book. It's a history lesson we all ought to be reading about. You know, for those who have been in this town for a while, you know, we remember a lot of freeway-related stories. I remember the 10 freeway collapse back during the Northridge earthquake. I remember Carmageddon, when they tore down and built up the Mulholland Bridge over the 405 freeway. That was an interesting time as well. But you have a story of something I personally remember, the era of the Diamond Lane, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when you drive onto a freeway ramp, you probably see those diamond insignias, and that signifies an HOV lane, and you need at least 2 people for those lanes. But the first diamond lane was in 1976 on the Santa Monica Freeway, and it was minimum 3 people. And what Caltrans did at the time was it converted an existing lane, the fast lane, into a diamond lane. And this was Adriana Gianturco. She was the head of Caltrans. It wasn't her decision. She just inherited this policy that was years in the making. And the mistake that Caltrans made was they converted an existing lane into an HOV lane, into a diamond lane. And people were up in arms because 97% of the drivers were solo drivers. And so that left this desert, this virtual unused lane, diamond lane, whereas all the other lanes got more congested, and people went to court and they claimed it was the diamond lane was discriminatory against people driving by themselves, or even against two-seat cars, excuse me, like Porsches and Corvettes. And eventually by August of 1976, a judge ruled that Caltrans needed to do away with the lane and convert it back to a regular lane, partly because Caltrans did not do an environmental impact report. And so the very idea of the diamond lane was to lessen pollution. They ended up inadvertently creating more of it because it created more congestion.
You know, you go back to, God, I think I can think back to the 50s. And I remember the TV shows, and you'd see these cloverleaf freeway exits and entrance, and you'd look at that and you'd go, that's Los Angeles. Because we really kind of created all these things, didn't we?
We did. The origin story of the cloverleafs and of the interchanges is the 4-level in downtown Los Angeles. And it quickly became emblematic of LA. You saw overheads of the 4-level and different interchanges on postcards, and you'd see those postcards at the airport, and it became iconography of Los Angeles. And you really can't tell the story of Los Angeles without telling the story of its freeways and its interchanges, which is why I wrote the book. The freeways became part of our history and our culture.
But if you go back to the beginning, it's the freeway to Pasadena. That was the first one, wasn't it? That was the first freeway.
Yes, correct. The Arroyo Seco Parkway was the first. It really, a lot of people will look at that and think, well, it's truly not a modern freeway. It's got a lot of curves. It was a parkway because at the time, the City Beautiful movement was a permeating society, especially in Pasadena and Los Angeles, and it was beautified, the entire route. But the Hollywood Freeway was the first modern freeway. It was created after the Arroyo Seco Parkway. And to this day, it's regarded as truly the hallmark of the modern freeway, even though the Arroyo Seco Parkway was first.
Over time, we've seen certainly gang graffiti on freeways, but then also we've seen efforts to make them artsy, to sort of have a bit of a pageantry along the freeways.
Well, it's funny because the Arroyo Seco Parkway did set the template for how we open freeways. There was the Rose Bowl beauty queen was there. Her name was Sally Stanton, and she was the one cutting the ribbon. And then what we saw with the Santa Monica Freeway and other freeways were beauty queens being trotted out to cut the ribbon with these oversized scissors. And sometimes the freeway policymakers would give these women honorifics. They'd give them sashes. It said Miss Simi Valley Freeway or Miss Freeway Link. Some of them were very clunky. You had Indians coming to transfer the land from Tongva Indian land to the state of California so that people could feel good about the fact that, look, we're actually trying to involve the native peoples into paving over their land that they once held. And so there was a lot of pomp and pageantry behind freeway openings. Right up into the last freeway in 1993, the Century Freeway, there was an Indian ceremony there with incense, and there were USC marching bands and a lot of pomp and circumstance. That's how we opened freeways. But I don't think if we open new freeways now, or certainly new segments, you don't see that anymore, because that's become kind of passé.
We have about a minute left, and I have to ask you, I mean, if history is prologue, where are we going? I mean, we see toll lanes popping up. We hear a lot about double decking. That hasn't quite happened, except down on the one going south, the harbor down. But you know, you don't see a lot of this. And so where do you think we're going with our freeways here in Southern California? We just have a few seconds left.
Yeah, we went from the era where we glorified freeways to where many people resent them now, because they don't necessarily improve the traffic situation. So I think you're going to see some congestion pricing. You're going to see HOT lanes, not HOV, but HOT, where you pay to be on the lanes. And you're certainly not going to see new freeways. If anything, you might see the decommissioning of some freeways, and maybe even some capped parks going over the freeways, like the Hollywood Freeway, which will enhance the community and provide more green belts over some of the trenched freeways like the Hollywood Freeway.
I'll tell you, as I drive home today, I'm going to have a little different perspective on the freeways that are taking me back there. Paul Haddad, thank you very much. Thanks for the history lesson. And we'll be back on Fox 11 News In Depth right after this break. Don't go away.